A military cargo plane was locked onto by a rebel surface-to-air missile. The pilot quickly lowered the flight altitude and released flares to avoid the strike. But the plane was still hit in the engine. The cabin fell into chaos as flames broke out, and the aircraft began to fall rapidly. The enemy launched another missile aimed at the falling plane. The passengers had no choice but to parachute out to survive. The plane eventually crashed. The rebels immediately sent a large number of troops to capture the people who had parachuted out. Meanwhile, 9 survivors were searching for the supplies that had been airdropped, but the rebels got there first. A fierce battle followed. Our Air Force headquarters received a rescue order. 2 pilots took off in fighter jets during the night. After a long flight, the jets reached the target area. They quickly locked onto the target and fired 2 missiles. The missiles destroyed the rebel air defense system and cleared the way for the rescue helicopters. However, on the ground, the survivors ran into big trouble. A large group of enemy soldiers surrounded them. They were trapped behind a car and could not escape. A major was badly wounded. He decided to stay behind as bait to cover his teammates' retreat. As the enemy drew closer, the major used his radio to request an airstrike. The ground enemies were wiped out instantly, but our jet was exposed and was soon chased by an enemy fighter jet. The pilot quickly climbed into the sky. After several rounds of dogfighting, he still could not shake off the enemy jet. Suddenly, the pilot had a good idea. He switched to maneuver mode. Just as the enemy was about to lock onto him, he pulled the control stick sharply and the jet rose fast. Then, with a clean move, he got behind the enemy plane and fired 2 missiles. The enemy jet was destroyed. But just as the threat in the air was cleared, another missile came from the ground. The pilot pulled the stick hard and flew straight up. At the same time, he released all the flares. The jet dodged the missile, but the engine suddenly failed. The pilot made emergency moves. Just before crashing into the water, the engine came back to life. Meanwhile, the survivors on the ground were attacked again. Heavy gunfire broke out. They were about to be captured. At their moment of despair, 2 fighter jets arrived and broke the sound barrier to scare off the enemy. Soon, many armed helicopters showed up. They kept firing heavy weapons at the rebels. The rescue team quickly dropped smoke bombs. Other forces provided cover fire. The 2 jets continued their attacks from above. Together, they protected the ground troops and rescued all the survivors.